Okay, so let's have a really big, not a little, a big virtual hug. Just a feeling of embracing us all. Like, just imagine that we're all standing in a big group, um, a big circle, and we've got our arms around each other. And we're really feeling that love extending, and we're looking into each other's eyes and just blessing each other, just seeing the Christ self in each other, just really saying, oh my gosh, I just saw how beautiful you were. I just saw the beauty in you. Oh my goodness, the scales have fallen from my eyes. I'm seeing your true self. You know, that's really what we want to do. We want to be using these groups to just come and say, I'm ready. I'm ready to just see with Christ's vision. But to get there, I've got to let go of something else. I have to let go of all this stuff that I want to hold on to, this tiny little self, this little body identity, these idols and of the world. I need to let go. I need to undo my beliefs about them and slowly work with the Holy Spirit to have him bring his lessons in. So the last 2 weeks we've been talking about, you know, to have all, give all to all, and to have peace, teach peace, to learn it. So it's funny because they just seem so easy for me now. It's just like, oh, this is such an easy lesson. And then I'm reading through this section. He's like, oh, this is going to cause a lot of conflict for a long period. And it's going to be, you know, tough. And, you know, you're going to not want to do it. And I'm like, oh, no, we want to do this. We want to do it. We really do. We want to do it with all our heart. Because why? Because we're going to have the peace of God at the end of it. That's why we want to do it. We want to have every part of our being immersed in A Course in Miracles teachings. We want to have those sayings going around our mind all day long. We want to be talking to the Holy Spirit in Jesus. We want to be sitting there. Of course, you're going to do other things, you know, but you want to be really immersed in these teachings. You just want to make, you know, I've said this before, make his course your life. Don't have an idol to climb the corporate ladder or, you know, have a portfolio of shares or properties or anything. You know, those can be used for his purposes. That's the only purpose for a house or a share in a dream. I mean, that's the thing, right? You've got to laugh. It's in the dream. It's a dream share. It's a dream house. It's a dream body. It's a dream. We're not our body. We're not bodies. We're mind. You can validate it. Everything the body does, you can't move without thinking about moving. You can't get up and go to the toilet or go and get a cup of tea. Got to have a thought first to do it, or you wouldn't do it. So everything's driven by the mind. All sickness and illness is driven by the mind's belief in its sinful nature. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? Right? Because we never did anything. You can't find your sinful self. It's impossible. That's what it showed me. It's an illusory sinful self. That's what we've come to see. That's why we come to laugh. What did I ever do that was that bad? The ego makes a mountain out of a molehill. Yeah, we might have done some little unloving things or unkind things, but why did we do them? Because we're listening to the ego, right? And the ego was telling us we're a body and we've got to attack and we've got to withhold love and we're, you know, go here and do that and get away from this one and get this job and happiness here. We're just asleep in a dream. I imagine if you went to sleep tonight and dreamt all that and you woke up and you said, well, that was just a dream. Nothing has happened. Nothing's happened. Nothing is happening. So all these are the lessons of the Holy Spirit, and he's going to take everyone through. Each mind is going to be awakened. No one's got a special connection to the Holy Spirit. No one's got a special connection to Jesus. We all have the same accessibility. It's just, what do you want to listen to? You've only got while we're here in the dream, we can come out of the dream and hear the Holy Spirit and Jesus and awaken to true perception, the true world, which just means we see the world differently. The eye still see images, that ears still hear sounds, but those sounds and images are not perceived as real. It's saying that it's a dream. And we just see it has to be a dream, because what else is it for? Like, you really seriously have to think about, what is this? What's this? What is this? If you want to call it a world, a real world, if that's where you're at, just question yourself. What's it all for? Where's it all going? What is there to achieve? If you're looking for success, have you ever got it? Because those answers have to show you that there's no happiness, there's no safety or happiness or love to be had here through another body, through what you think is outside you. We're enamored into thinking that this body is us because, we touch something and we say, well, it's got to be real because I felt something. All that's part of the dream. You feeling something, you seeing something, you tasting something, it's all part of the dream. That's the dream. Everything that you do and say is all in the dream. Your mind is right back somewhere else. This is the dream. And you, as the personal, what you think as you in your life, and you as Cate or Susan or Shannon, isn't dreaming the dream. The personal self is part of it. It's not dreaming the dream. So when he says, you are the dreamer of the dream, he's not talking about you as the ego. He's talking about knowing that there's a part of your mind that is projecting a whole dream and you thinking you're in it. So there's like all these steps away, and then you're right at the end, and it's like walking through a house and each room closes off. A door closes and you step somewhere else and the door closes, and we've stepped about 5 rooms and we find ourselves in this room and we have to be taken back. And that's what happens. We get those holy instants, those aha moments where we're stepping back. And then the last room is where we're, what we might call it, the lawns of heaven. And God takes the final step, which is just that there's no step actually to be taken, because there's just the mind opens up to truth. And that's it. But while we're feeling we're a body, we have to be vigilant for God and his kingdom, which is this week's topic, right? So I'm leading into it by sharing about some of these things. And I have been through those rooms. I was fully immersed into the belief I was a body and in a world and seeking happiness, and then presented with all the teachings in the course. I didn't really do any other spiritual teachings outside. I did a few little things, but Course in Miracles was my main teaching. Getting in touch with the Holy Spirit and Jesus in my mind wasn't easy. It wasn't easy for me. I had to work hard. I had to spend a lot of time in quietness, asking. Occasionally I would hear and sometimes I wouldn't. But more and more that I did it, the more I had that willingness and that devotion to him and calling upon him. And just, you don't realize how much you desire the world. You have to see that. You have to see, you have to choose against it, which is sometimes seemingly very difficult, but that's why we have to come to that moment where we're choosing the Holy Spirit over the ego, and the ego is going to ramp up and say, if you choose against me, all will be chaos. And that word chaos the ego is not going to say the word chaos. It's going to go into a big story. And I've talked about that before, about the big story of all the terrible things that is going to happen if you choose against it. But what you're choosing against is fear. That's all. and all, as Jesus says, all will be love in the end. And I mean, isn't it silly to think we're hanging on to this, we're hanging on to fear, thinking that it's going to help us, right? Because the ego says, be fearful of this and be fearful of that. Look, they might attack you. Look at this. Oh, yeah, there's lack. It's like, and you think this is good being in this ego mind. You go, yeah, the ego knows where all the fear and the attack and the lack is. And you just say, actually, it never comes up with an answer. All it does is tell me where lack and fear is. Who to not love and who to go out and find the pearl of love. Oh, this body over here's got the pearl. It says, and it goes, oh, actually, no, it's putrid over there. Let's go over here. It just keeps you mindless in a dream. You're stuck in a dream, but you don't know you're in the dream. It's only a few steps back where you really see the dream. And the Holy Spirit will lead you. But we have to see the ego for what it is. If you don't look at the ego, you have to look at the ego. It's all part of the course. You can't pretend that you can't pretend it out of reality. The only way to really come home is to look at the ego with the Holy Spirit. He has to look at what's going on. You have to say, this is what happened today, or this is, whatever. Bring him everything and look at it. Jesus says, don't hide anything in the cornerstones of your mind. Bring him everything. Just say, hey, this is what happened yesterday, Holy Spirit. Show me how to look upon it. So it's literally like all day long, just be asking, hey, I've got to go and do this and I'm worried about, I've got this idea of lack. You don't have to say the ego or anything because you're identifying with that sort of thought system. Talk to the Holy Spirit as if he's your best friend. Have a look at how Helen talked with Jesus. We've put Jesus on a pedestal and said, I've got to make myself holy to have him speak to me. But he's not. He's right there. When I first started interacting with Jesus, he said to me, I'm as close as your breath and I'm there with you. It's like, oh, okay. But I was scared because I felt I wasn't pure enough. Why would he be bothered with me? We have this idea that Jesus is off, with all the others, and I'm just not worthy for him to come. I just thought to myself, who am I? Who am I for him he wouldn't take the time of day out for me. I'm nothing. But that's the ego's idea that we're so unworthy. The ego's just got this terrible idea that we're just a piece of dirt. That's how the ego tells us. We're just nothing. And yet Jesus is just, as he said, he's just waiting by all the time, waiting for us. And there's that beautiful section in the Course where he says, don't try to make yourself holy to come to me. That's my job. Right? So, okay, I just need to invite you in while I'm feeling like I'm a piece of dirt. And of course, I don't know when I'm feeling that way that I'm listening to the ego telling me, because I've only got two thought systems. But we're enamored with this. We're connected to the ego's thought system. We've not got no awareness of it. And as we start to work with the Holy Spirit and Jesus, we start to become aware, oh, that's right, that's an ego thought. That thought that says I'm unworthy and I'm horrible and, I should kill myself. That's the ego. The ego wants me dead. Okay, there's the thought that just said, yeah, you should kill yourself. That's the ego. So now I'm looking at the ego. So being vigilant for God and the kingdom is literally this. Is just being vigilant all day long for God, for God's voice, the Holy Spirit, the love that was sent into our mind when the dream was projected. The Holy Spirit is in our mind. It's our right-minded thoughts. You can call it whatever you like, but you can test it out. And this is what we're really being asked to do, is to keep asking and listening. And those answers are beautiful and they do help. And everybody has a different way of how it works. He uses different things to awaken us. We have our own unique journey. So don't go looking at someone else's and go comparing. Trust in your way. That's for you. And so to be vigilant, we just really we want to be vigilant for God and the kingdom, which is in our mind. And that means doing forgiveness and doing the first 2 lessons of the Holy Spirit. So, okay, so we're going to get into some reading now. Shannon, would you like to start? We're going to be reading a couple of paragraphs from chapter 6, Lessons of Love, section 5, the Lessons of the Holy Spirit, and section C, be vigilant only for God and his kingdom. Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you, Cate. For anyone who wants to follow along, it is page 108. At least in my book, it is. Thank you, Cate, for sharing all of that. That was just wonderful. I appreciate that. When I was first starting out too, Jesus would say to me things like, like I would compartmentalize him, like, oh, it had to be when I was sitting on my meditation pillow, and that's when I could talk to him. But really, it took me months to learn that actually he's here now, always here now, and so always accessible to us. And so I think that's part of what this third lesson of the Holy Spirit is just remembering that, what, God is here now, and we can be vigilant for him. He's always here with us now. We are in him and part of him. So, okay, so C, be vigilant only for God and his kingdom. We said before that the Holy Spirit is evaluative and must be. He sorts out the true from the false in your mind and teaches you to judge every thought you allow to enter it in the light of what God put there. Whatever is in accord with this light, he retains to strengthen the kingdom in you. What is partly in accord with it, he accepts and purifies. But what is out of accord entirely, he rejects by judging against. This is how he keeps the kingdom perfectly consistent and perfectly unified. Remember, however, that what the Holy Spirit rejects, the ego accepts. This is because they are in fundamental disagreement about everything. Being in fundamental disagreement about what you are. The ego's beliefs on this crucial issue vary, and that is why it promotes different moods. The Holy Spirit never varies on this point. And so the one mood he engenders is joy. He protects it by rejecting everything that does not foster joy. And so he alone can keep you wholly joyous.
Isn't that wonderful? That the Holy Spirit rejects everything that does not foster joy. So amazing just to have that beautiful teaching. He can keep us wholly joyful, wholly joyous. Like that's why we want to turn to him. Even if you're struggling to hear, which seems to be most of us do, because we're just so used to listening to the ego, and as Jesus says, the ego speaks first. It's like, how amazing that the ego fosters joy. And this is my interpretation, peace. Joy comes from peace. So that joy is the bubbling up from the peace of God. So his peace, it's natural to have joy from that peace. And it's just beautiful. That's why it's so, I guess you might say, it's motivating us to do more and more, connecting with the Holy Spirit, more, doing the lessons properly, it's, you know, Jesus says that he's really trying to motivate us by showing us that this leads to joy and peace. And that this is how he keeps the kingdom perfectly consistent and perfectly unified. By us, our one responsibility is to accept the correction, which is really to, you know, ask the Holy Spirit for the true perception, which is the miracle. So the Holy Spirit's way of bringing in the answer is the miracle, because it brings this beautiful peace and joy. You find you're more joyful just naturally. And that's why he says the miracle is the natural extension of love, because when you are joyful, you're just full of love. So all these things go together. They're the fruits of the Spirit. You know, the joy just comes out, the love just comes out. And others just like being around you because you are naturally just joyful. And then if you have an ego belief and a thought, you just need to get correction. So it's always the same thing. You know, whenever you're upset, you need correction. And the correction brings peace and joy. And then you might have peace and joy for long periods of time, and then you get upset. You don't have to say, oh, what happened? You just ask for correction. So it's basically, you just live your life in, my one responsibility is to, if I'm upset, accept correction. If I'm not upset, I'm in the joy. I'm in the peace and joy of God, of the Holy Spirit, of my true self. So the Holy Spirit does not teach you to judge others, because he does not want you to teach error and learn it yourself. He would hardly be consistent if he allowed you to strengthen what you must learn to avoid. In the mind of the thinker, then, he is judgmental, but only in order to unify the mind so it can perceive without judgment. This enables the mind to teach without judgment, and therefore to learn to be without judgment. So this is how we're teaching our brother, that we're not judging him, because we're listening to the Holy Spirit's interpretation of our brother. And he's telling us not to judge, to see the Christ, to see holiness, to see sinlessness, to see innocence. And therefore, we learn to be without judgment. All what we're doing is teaching us, our mind is getting purified of judgment. So everything I'm giving to my brother, I'm receiving, I'm having that experience of judgment being erased out of my mind. The undoing is necessary only in your mind so that you will not project instead of extend. God himself has established what you can extend with perfect safety. Therefore, the Holy Spirit's third lesson is, be vigilant only for God and his kingdom. Shannon?
This is a major step toward fundamental change. Yet it still has an aspect of thought reversal, since it implies that there is something you must be vigilant against. It has advanced far from the first lesson, which is merely the beginning of the thought reversal, and also from the second, which is essentially the identification of what is more desirable. So he's talking about the first two that you went through the past 2 weeks, which are to have peace, teach peace, to learn it, and to have, give all to all. This step, which follows from the second, as the second follows from the first, emphasizes the dichotomy between the desirable and the undesirable. It therefore makes the ultimate choice inevitable.
So we are being shown what is desirable and what is undesirable. We want the peace of God. That's what we desire. And then the undesirable we need to see. that we don't desire this world and seeking all the time, seeking for happiness and love where we can't find it. So the Holy Spirit's teaching us, it emphasizes between the desirable and the undesirable. It therefore makes the ultimate choice inevitable. In other words, when we think about it, and we do need to think about it, we have to say, okay, if there is no peace and beautiful love, unconditional love to be found here, then it makes our ultimate choice inevitable. We have to do that. We have to see that we're going to give up listening to the ego, because remember, it's got its thought system of how to seek happiness. It's going to present its case of how to find happiness. What we need to recognize is that doesn't work. So we choose once again, and we keep choosing once again. While the first step seems to increase conflict, the first step is to have all, give all to all, which is, he showed us that we need to give appreciation to our brother, which is really love, right? He focused on that word appreciation in that first week. And obviously that's going to bring up conflict, because the ego is going to say that we shouldn't appreciate some of our brothers, or we shouldn't love them. And so the ego always separates, judges and separates. So the Holy Spirit is going to come into your mind and show you how there's no order of difficulty in extending appreciation and love to all brothers. That's his job. So it's going to bring up conflict, because the ego is going to, as I said, it has its seemingly projections that it's saying this image can't be loved and appreciated. And the second, which is to have peace, teach peace to learn it, and may still entail conflict to some extent. This step, which is be vigilant only for God and his kingdom, it calls for consistent, vigilant against it. I have already told you that you can be as vigilant against the ego as for it. So we have to step up our vigilance against the ego. In other words, to be vigilant against the ego means you're asking the Holy Spirit, or you're applying the daily lesson, or you're doing something to shift that perception. The lesson teaches not only that you can be vigilant against it, but that you must be. You must be vigilant against it. If you want to have peace, you must be really vigilant against the ego. It does not concern itself with the order of difficulty, but with clear-cut priority for vigilance. In other words, just be vigilant. Remember how he says there's this just a tiny sigh or a little like feeling of irritation. We won't ask the Holy Spirit about that. We'll be tolerant of that. But he really is asking us to become eventually really vigilant for even the slightest feeling of our annoyance or irritation. This lesson is unequivocal in that it teaches there must be no exceptions. Okay, that's good. I just said that. Although it does not deny that the temptation to make exceptions will occur. So we have to say, yeah, we will be tempted to make exceptions, but he's asking us to ramp up our vigilance. Here then, your consistency is called upon despite chaos. So I'll just keep reading. Yet chaos and consistency cannot coexist for long, since they are mutually exclusive. As long as you must be vigilant against anything, however, you are not recognizing this mutual exclusiveness. and still believe that you can choose either one. By teaching what to choose, the Holy Spirit will ultimately teach you that you need not choose at all. This will finally liberate your mind from choice and direct it towards creation within the kingdom. So that's really the next line. I'm just going to read the next line of the paragraph, because it's sort of, I'll just read that so I can talk about this section. Choosing through the Holy Spirit will lead you to the kingdom. So basically, we still, when we're choosing between the ego and the Holy Spirit, we're really not recognizing that there is no ego. And what he's saying, that we can get to the stage where we put the Holy Spirit in charge of our day. And this is something he says in Rules for Decision as well, that you really actually, your determination to just hear the Holy Spirit throughout the day can really cancel out the ego's thoughts. And therefore, there is no choice. You're just listening. You may not be awakened, but you're really at that final stage where you've decided, I only want to hear the Holy Spirit. So all day long, Holy Spirit, be in my mind, you be in charge. Holy Spirit, what would you have me say here? Holy Spirit, what would you have me do? Or Jesus, whatever you prefer to call upon. They're symbols of God's love, symbols of wisdom. And really surrendering, letting go, and letting him lead the way throughout the day. And this really allows you to become vigilant for God and his kingdom. We will take you right to the lawns of heaven if you really get to this stage where you're really spending all day asking him and putting him in charge. And it really does start to really cancel out the ego in your mind. So, all right, Shannon, we're just going to read 5 paragraphs today. So this is the last one, and then we'll do a meditation.
Okay, thanks, Cate. I'm just going to read that first sentence in paragraph 5 again. Choosing through the Holy Spirit will lead you to the kingdom. You create by your true being, but what you are, you must learn to remember. The way to remember it is inherent in the 3rd step, which brings together the lessons implied in the others and goes beyond them towards real integration. If you allow yourself to have in your mind only what God put there, you are acknowledging your mind as God created it. Therefore, you are accepting it as it is. Since it is whole, you are teaching peace because you believe in it. The final step will still be taken for you by God, but by the 3rd step, the Holy Spirit has prepared you for God. He is getting you ready for the translation of having into being by the very nature of the steps you must take with him.
So having into being, this is how I would sort of share about that, is the lesson, I want the peace of God. I have the peace of God. And the being is I am the peace of God. I have my beingness. And there's no God. The word God can't be said because you're in it. So you're not separate from God in that final experience. You'll say the word God, but everything is God. So there's no separation. That's all that is unconditional love, is holy love. And you're in it. So that's all Jesus can point to in this stage, at this stage of the text. because it's really difficult to point to it other than saying you're going to have your beingness in it. So be vigilant. This is really where, he has said we have to have clear-cut priority for vigilance. So I just encourage everyone to, if you want to have God and the kingdom, the beautiful beingness of God, we have to be really vigilant until we see that the ego is nothing and there's no vigilance required and we have our beingness in it. So now I have a meditation to take you through. If I'd just probably encourage you not to read this workbook lesson. Just close your eyes now and just let the words take you into the experience. For anyone that wants to know what lesson it is, if after this meditation, if you're listening back to this recording, it's lesson 124. Let me remember I am one with God. And we're going to read just 2 paragraphs out of this. And then we're going to go into a 30-minute meditation. So get yourselves comfortable, if you like. Okay, so Shannon, would you like to read paragraph 1? Thank you.
Thank you, Cate. Let me remember I am one with God. Today, we will again give thanks for our identity in God. Our home is safe, protection guaranteed in all we do, power and strength available to us in all our undertakings. We can fail in nothing. Everything we touch takes on a shining light that blesses and that heals. At one with God and with the universe, we go our way rejoicing, with the thought that God Himself goes everywhere with us.
So this is paragraph 8. And this is what we're going to focus on for the meditation today. Okay, let me remember I am one with God. So I'm going to be vigilant for God and His kingdom by remembering, by putting a focus now for 30 minutes, by trying to remember, seeking to remember I am one with God. So peace be to you today. Secure your peace by practicing awareness that you are one with your Creator as He is with you. Sometime today, whenever it is best, devote half an hour to the thought that you are one with God. This is our first attempt at an extended period for which we give no rules nor special words to guide your meditation. We will trust God's voice to speak as He sees fit today, certain He will not fail. Abide with Him this half an hour, and He will do the rest. Okay, just very gently allowing your mind to come back to my voice. Just, I hope you had some experience, even if it was just a moment, a holy instant. It just took you somewhere. Generally, it's just, there's no awareness of the body, no awareness of you, no thoughts about you, just the being. It is an absolute pleasure to come here with Shannon and my other little helpers at times to present these teachings and meditations to be truly helpful. So I just wanted to once again say I love you and I appreciate you all in that you join, you turn up each week, and I'm sure you're doing your utmost to be vigilant against the ego throughout the week. Remember, we're never going to do this perfectly, but we're all going to awaken in the end, and we already have. So we're going through a process that is already over, but for us, we're not. We have to go through it. There's no two ways about it. You've got to go through it, but then there is an awareness that whatever we're going through now never happened. So it's all paradoxical. And you live in a paradox in the end. The happy dream is living with the paradox. We're in a dream that never happened. So I just felt this guidance coming through as finishing the meditation to read out a couple of lines from today's section. So this is, hang on, where is it? Okay. I have already told you that you can be as vigilant against the ego as for it. This lesson teaches not only that you can be, but that you must be. It does not concern itself with order of difficulty, but with clear-cut priority for vigilance. This lesson is unequivocal in that it teaches there must be no exceptions. And I'm going to leave it there. So if you can think of those words as you go through the week, really, really do not be tempted to make exceptions. Really, really stay vigilant. Keep inviting the Holy Spirit in. Keep asking for help. Talk to Jesus. Feel his love. Do whatever you need to do in however you need to do it. But remain extremely vigilant and make no exceptions. So once again, thanks Shannon for your help. Thanks everyone for tuning up. It's been lovely to share this message, his message. And I mean, the peace of God is just so beautiful. There's nothing that you would want but that. That's why we want to be vigilant. He wants us to come home to the peace of God, to this beautiful, vast, glorious love that we have our being in. And that's why we need to be vigilant. So thank you. I love you. I bless you. I honor you. We're all one, the self, the Christ self. Thank you. Have a beautiful week. Bye.